Within the hour, these pictures released by the United States government, pictures taken by marshals, U.S. Marshals at Andrews Air Force Base near Washington. 6-year-old Ellian Gonzalez reunited after almost 5 months with his father, Juan Miguel Gonzalez. The two, this is a scene we assume that was the case just a few hours ago, and it was taken, this picture was taken several hours after young Ellian was forcibly removed from the home in Miami where he had spent the last few months with his relatives, Gonzales relatives in Miami. Also in the picture you can see, if we widen out, young Ellian's stepmother, Nursey, and his half-brother, Hiani. Nursey is the second wife of Juan Miguel Gonzalez, and their child, the child between the two of them, is young Yanni, and he is the half-brother of Ellian. Here's another picture of Ellian with his half-brother. These, we're told the reunion between father and son was, at least after a few moments, there were smiles, there was rejoicing, there was embracing, and overall a mood of celebration. Very different from the scene that we saw and was described a few hours earlier when the young boy was forcibly removed from the home in Miami. And more on that, Gene.
For some insights into what happened early this morning in Little Miami and how it happened, we turn to Matthew Fogg. He is Chief Inspector and a Deputy U.S. Marshal and has taken part in government operations at Ruby Bridge and during the Los Angeles riots. Mr. Chief Inspector, should people be at all alarmed or concerned that weapons were used in this morning's seizure of the boy?
No, I don't think they should be alarmed. I mean, I think people have to understand whenever law enforcement comes into a position of this nature, weapons are a part of law enforcement. So certainly we would have weapons if we would go into a situation like this.
The Justice Department says there was intelligence that there might have been weapons inside the house. In that situation, was there any alternative to a show of arms?
No, absolutely not. The officer's safety, as well as the safety of the civilians in that house, are very important, and officers are trained and know how to use those weapons, so certainly that weapon would be with that officer.
Mr. Fogg, if that's the case, if you look at this picture here of one of the marshals, well, the picture we were showing just a moment ago with the officer, here it is again with the large gun. I don't know what gun it is. Maybe you can tell us what weapon that is?
Yes, that looks like an MP5 automatic weapon.
Why would he be holding it in that position at that point?
Well, it's certainly very difficult to say. I was not a part of this operation, so I could not begin to tell you, but certainly the officers, I'm sure they were briefed on how to tactically approach this situation. It was a tactical operation. I'm sure things were moving pretty fast, so I cannot tell you why the officer had the weapon at that position, but certainly I'm sure they were able to do the job without any shots fired, so that's the main thing.
Mr. Fogg, again, we want to tell our audience, you're Chief Inspector, Deputy U.S. Marshal. You have experience with these types of operations, although we all recognize this was a unique situation. What goes into a situation, a preparation for a movement like this one?
Mm-hmm. Well, basically they would have briefings on top of briefings. In a situation like this, they knew ahead of time that this was something that possibly we would have to do. So certainly, and these officers are well trained. I mean, I've trained at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia, other locations. These officers were well equipped, well trained to do this job.
Do you think this took some special training given the circumstances that surrounded this operation in Miami?
I don't think so, not really. I mean, I think certainly to understand the perimeter and know exactly the position that you're going to go in, I think they may have certainly had briefings on that, but not anything really out the way. This operation went very smoothly. It was within 3 minutes they were in and out. So,
put us in the minds of the agents who took part in this operation. What is it you have to be prepared for? What's the worst case scenario?
Well, the worst case scenario would be shots fired, an officer down, someone being shot, or rounds being transferred. In this case, it wasn't, but you have to be always cognizant that that might take place. So the officers came in to set up a perimeter with the local PD, cordon off the area, and go in and do what you have to do, and then come out.
How do you describe the mission, Mr. Fogg, of the officers? What do they believe and know their mission to be when they go in a situation like this?
They believe their mission was to go in and get Ellian and bring him out. Certainly, I mean, that's exactly what happened here. So from that standpoint, they went in. As I said, it was normally these type of operations take a lot longer, but In this situation they went in, it was smooth.
We were told that there was a female agent who was involved in physically, at least bringing the boy out of the house. We don't know if she was the first to hold him inside the house. Do you have that information?
No, I don't have any information on it.
What would that be? What would that involve? If you're dealing with a minor in a situation like this, the agent would have been. We know that she was Spanish speaking, is
Right.
Spanish speaking. She would have been briefed ahead of time as to what to say to reassure
Yes,
the child.
I would think so. But once again, things went so fast and so smoothly that once they were in, they went right in, grabbed the little boy, and came right on out the house. So I don't know if there was a lot of dialogue in that process.
When
This
you have
is, I just want to say, Gene, this, I believe this picture we're showing right now is of the female agent holding Ellian, and then, of course, they're surrounded by other agents. The child is obviously frightened
That's correct.
at best at this point.
Would there be a new level of preparation necessary because there was such a young child involved?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think just the preparation of going in, the main thing that I think the officers were concerned about was who would try to resist and stop them from going in. Once that perimeter was broken, then take the child and say, we're going to execute this court order and continue right on moving, all in one process.
The agents that were involved, Mr. Fogg, represented what government agencies?
Well, once again, I can only go on the pictures that I've observed, but it looked like INS, U.S. Border Patrol agents.
If you were part of today's operation in Little Miami this morning, would you have completed that and then said to yourself and to your colleagues, job well done?
Certainly. Certainly I would have. When you go on an operation of this type of nature and it only takes 3 minutes, you go in, no shots fired, and you're out. Great job.
Mr. Fogg, thank you very much. Thanks for the insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
And we will be back in just a moment.
Case in a special live edition of